everybody. Welcome, Facebook world. We are here. We are live. My name is Via Williams. I'm with the Ben Kinney companies. We have 8 Keller Williams offices here in Western Washington, so the Seattle area, from Bellingham down to Olympia. And every Wednesday at noon Pacific time, we do these Wednesday webinars. And we started these at the very beginning of COVID. And we started them because we wanted to give agents real-time tactical training on what was working right now this week. So we always choose agents in the field, actively working, actively talking, actively doing the work of what they're talking about. And I couldn't think of a better topic today, right now, when all of us have to use the phone. I mean, not everyone can door knock right now. It depends on what phase they're in. I could not think of a better group of people than to get 3 ISAs that are on the phone. It really is a full-time job all day, every day, right? And for those of you who aren't familiar with the term OSA or ISA, OSA is typically an outbound sales agent, and ISA is typically means inside sales agent. I've found more and more ISA is kind of a blanket term. And what it means is they're appointment setters for their teams. They are on the phone all day making appointments, outbounding for brand new leads, so cold calling, and also taking inbound leads and converting those, and doing whatever it takes to make appointments for the team. So they are on the phone almost all the time, and we'll go into that. Some of them have slightly different and additional job descriptions. So if you think about it, you know, who's going to be the master at scripts? Who's going to be the master at getting the appointment, which we can all agree is the hardest part of real estate. The hardest part of real estate is getting that appointment, right? It's the most important part of the sales process. It's the one I measure the most. It's the one that I hold my team accountable to most. The appointments are kind of everything in sales, certainly in our kind of sales. So today we've got 3 unbelievable ISAs. It feels like a Monday and it's Wednesday, by the way. Labor Day really threw me. We have 3 amazing ISAs. We've got Anne-Marie Anderson from the Tony Baroni team, and Anne-Marie has a lot of superpowers. One of the things that I think is an incredible superpower is Anne-Marie is like, you know, this she's like Wonder Woman to me, because she actually gets buyers to commit to a buyer rep agreement before they even walk in the door for the buyer consult. She gets nervous when I say that, because we're going to go into that, Anne-Marie, but in essence, you have people walking in that have either signed an agreement or expect to sign an agreement and are ready to go. I think it's really incredible pre-closing what you do. So I'm really excited to go into that. And the Tony Baroni team is where in Florida? What cities are you guys in?
Tampa Bay and Orlando.
There you go. Tampa Bay and Orlando. Awesome. Mark Parvin is with one of my very close friends, Sarah Reynolds, in the Reynolds team, a team I think very, very highly of, and they're based in Virginia, so they cover the district, Virginia, Maryland, and they have an amazing expansion partner in Atlanta, Lindy Moore, who I love. I may have had a little part in that, by the way. I don't know if you know that, Mark. May have had a little part in that.
No.
You'll have to ask the ladies about that. And I've actually worked with Mark personally, because, you know, we just closed on a referral. They're getting a referral check from us, and I've kind of witnessed firsthand what the ISA department, how incredibly good they are on the Reynolds team. So, you know, Mark's superpower, he feels like, is really objection handling and being seller focused, which we all need to be right now. So I'm really excited to jump into that with you, Mark, and thank you for being here.
Yeah.
The last, but definitely not least, the last person we have is from the Loken Group, my good friend, Lance Loken. We have Danielle Weiss. Is it Weiss or Weiss?
It's Weiss.
Weiss. I should have asked you that, huh?
That's okay.
I love how in our prep calls, I'm focused on all the important stuff and I forget to ask you how to actually pronounce her name. That's like life with Via right there. And Danielle, you're with the Loken Group, and you really just are really great at scripting. You feel like your superpower is just scripting in general and kind of internalizing the scripts. You're really great with listing scripts and with sellers, but you've also had experience in the field, which I'm really interested in exploring. I feel like that probably makes you a really great ISA, having that field experience and kind of knowing how to set the agent up for success, because it's sometimes hard to set an appointment for someone else. So I'm really, really, really excited to have each of you. And first and foremost, I want to thank you for your time. I know it's a really busy time right now in real estate. Almost every major market that I'm aware of is screaming busy. So for you guys to take an hour to just give back, I think all of us here, I can speak for all of our viewers and listeners, we really appreciate it. We really do. I know that, it's taking an hour of your time, and then we had some prep time. So I want to start with the assumption that most of our markets are in phase 2 of some sort, right? Some are in a phase 3, but we're coming out. No one's probably, I don't think anyone in the nation's in that stage 1 quarantine where the whole nation was locked down. So with that said, who's the market of the moment? Who are you targeting the most right now on your calls? Who is the primary market that you guys are each targeting? And Danielle, let's start with you.
Sure. So for us right now, we're really focusing on our database. We all know on this call that people that know who we are, what we do, how we do it, and why we do it are going to be the people that are going to work with us, and we're going to have a higher conversion rate. We're finding that it's really challenging at this time to find listings, as there's a lot of uncertainty going on. And so even in this per se phase 2, now that pandemic shock has kind of settled, we're still having a challenge with inventory. So our focus right now for sellers specifically is within our database and within our METs, forever clients. So focusing there, obviously we are very heavy on marketing, so different lead sources that we spend marketing efforts with. We want to make sure we're converting those as quickly as possible and as best as possible, as always. But truly, our big focus right now is database, and we're doing a lot of virtual events throughout the remainder of the year. So we're really heavily marketing for that. And I believe we got one of our virtual events from Anne-Marie on this call with the Tony Baroni team. Our first call in to win is next Wednesday. So we're looking forward to that. So that's where we're focusing a lot of our listings for right now.
That's great. And what can you give us an example of maybe what one of those virtual events looks like?
Sure. So we're actually doing a musical bingo, which is kid friendly. So we're calling obviously everybody in our database, and especially our METs and our forever clients in our sphere, letting them know, hey, we understand. I don't know if any of you guys know, but the Locan Group, we do a big pie day every Thanksgiving. We give out free pies. Well, with COVID, that looks a little bit different this year. So what we're doing is we're being proactive and telling them about our upcoming events. So one of them is a musical bingo night to get your kids involved. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be raffle prizes as well. And then the other event that I mentioned is next week. It's basically a reverse bold 100, which we believe, based on what we heard from the Tony Baroni team, we're going to get a lot more than 100 calls, seeing that we're marketing to over 20,000 people in our database. So we have all of our ISAs on standby, multiple lines ready to go. So we're hoping for a reverse 1,000, which would be great to give away a grand prize of a green egg. So obviously, have referrals for us when they call in. We'll give them extra chances to win and enter into the contest. So there's a benefit for them to call in and get extra chances to win.
Well, that's great. And I'm excited to dive into the reverse 1,000 with Anne-Marie of Tony Baroni team. Anne-Marie, who's your market of the moment right now?
So clearly that has been one of our big ones since we did our first reverse bold just before COVID. We did our first one for Valentine's Day for reverse bold, and I believe we got 138 responses on that reverse bold, and then it has grown up till the last one. We got 334, I believe, calling in.
And so when you say reverse bold, just because there's a lot of people here that are, all different brokerages that are watching this. So bold is the bold 100 is a training that a lot of us do at Keller Williams, where we have to have 100 contacts in a day. So when you say reverse bold, you're doing some kind of a marketing promotion that gets 100 plus people to call you. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think as we are in these times with the election coming up too, we've all been strategizing on people aren't going to be answering their phones. That's probably not going to be their biggest desire, to talk to somebody that's pushing them on the election. So we got ahead of it with COVID too, just for, there's a captive audience to tell them they're online, they're looking at things. So we've done everything. Our big push is a newsletter to get the word out. But the biggest push, and it's kind of like any marketing idea, if they've seen it 8 times, you don't know which one necessarily triggered it, but they probably need to see it 8 places. So we text them the day of and just say, call in today between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. For a chance to win. And then to the point that Danielle was talking, for extra entries, what we do, and we varied it on the different events. This last one, they got a point or an entry just for calling in. And then if they were to like us on Facebook, they got an extra entry. If they followed us on Instagram, they got an extra entry. And then if they were able to provide a referral, and by that, they got permission for us to contact them that day with their name and number, they got 5 extra entries.
That's
so
great.
It's the extra little hook of getting permission, and it kind of just throws them off on the call for like, oh, permission. And I said, they go, oh, I can't think of everybody today. I said, well, we're here till 5. So if you think of any, we're here till 5.
And I just want to point out for all of you guys who are watching today, if you have not seen our Wednesday webinar with the Anderson Hicks group, which we did 2 weeks ago. I missed you all. We weren't here last week, but we did it 2 weeks ago. That really goes into the promise script, and it talks about how to get permission for you to contact a referral rather than, oh, I just gave them your card. So that's a really, really good webinar for you to reference personally. I think you should listen to that in your car every day for a month. But anyway, Mark, would love to hear what the market of the moment is for you guys.
Yeah. So we have a very similar approach to both Danielle and Anne-Marie, and that we're trying to drive listings up more. It's difficult with as low as inventory has been. We're really trying to tap into our data bank, referrals. And one thing that we've really started doing more is working on just educating clients or potential clients, our database. So we've been holding more workshops. A lot of people, they think that it may not be the right time to make a move, but home prices, they're higher than they've ever been, at least here in the DC metro market. And interest rates are the lowest that they've ever been. So by educating, we found that we've had a lot of success through educating the public and what they can do to get their home sale ready, and hopefully a lot of downsizing. So people that are moving maybe further away from the city to more rural areas. So we're trying to tap into that a little bit more.
Are you guys finding that too, Mark? We're really finding that here in the Seattle area that, just for a variety of reasons, that our numbers are really strong in the suburbs and outerlying areas, and people are moving out of the urban cores. You guys are finding that too?
Oh yeah, so a lot. There's so many people too, and they're really scared with the election coming up. They're worried about what's going to happen in terms of the market afterwards. And we're running into so many people that are moving into those more rural or suburban areas. Yeah. They're even selling their home and then renting somewhere else and kind of waiting until after the election. We're staying in contact with those people periodically until after the election. But yeah. We're seeing a lot.
Yeah. Mark, you guys did something I thought was genius. And I remember it early on in one of my very early Wednesday webinars. I must have learned it from Sarah. And that is that whenever you talk to somebody And they would have been a good seller prospect had it not have been for quarantine and COVID. You tag them, and you tagged them, I don't know, whatever it was, COVID or whatever you tagged them, so that you could come back to them the minute this left. And so you kind of had this pipeline that you were building during that time. How did you do with that? I'm curious. Now you've got time to tell the tale. How did that work?
So in the beginning, we actually never changed our approach. So we tried to treat it as much like COVID didn't exist. We were still trying to meet with people in person as much as we could. Once they gave us objections, obviously we took a step back. We offered the virtual option. And if they still didn't want to do that, like plans are on a complete standstill. Our system, we use Sync as our CRM. It allows us to just add, it's a simple label. So it would say COVID seller or COVID buyer. And to us, that would trigger, for the ISAs, like these people aren't looking to move until things die down. And so what we would do is we would reach out, we could sift through our database by filtering through just those specific labels. And each time we would go into maybe a new phase of COVID, we would start reaching out to those people. And it's proven to be super, super helpful. It helped us to make sure that we didn't lose tabs on people. I know we've booked at least 8 listings in the past 2 weeks just from that label. Buyers I'd have to double check on, but it's been really, really helpful.
Oh, that's great. I think that's a really good tip. Just for any event in life, it's just a good practice to do when there's an external extenuating circumstance, and it could be, hurricane, it could be a lot of things where they would normally be a good prospect, and you can label them to come back to. That's great. So Mark, let's stay on you for a minute. That's your market of the moment. Let's go through a script. What's a typical script? What would that look like? We can role play if you'd like.
Sure. Let's see. We had a lot of people are worried about the election or maybe school starting, or what we're running into right now, especially for buyers, is low inventory. Okay. And so they'll say to us, I don't want to go. I don't want to buy a house right now. They're just moving too fast. I'm not really seeing anything that I like. And for us, that's like, it kind of opens the doors up script-wise for us. It's something that we can kind of dive right into. And then for us, the ISA, we have about 150 homes that are coming soon. Those are homes that only our team has access to. So what we can do is sit down with you, go over what your exact buying criteria is, whether that be number of bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, whatever it is you're looking for in the home. We can narrow that down through our database of homes, and you would get access to all those homes before anybody else. So that means you're going to see them before they hit Zillow. You're going to see them before they hit Trulia or Realtor.com. And those are things that only we have access to. All we need is about 20 minutes of your time to sit down, go through the buying criteria. It's free. There's zero obligation. And it seems to be helpful.
Oh, that's a great one. Let's stay on that one. That's a really common objection right now. Anne-Marie, how would you objection handle that one?
For the buyers?
I'm a buyer, and I just, I don't want to be involved in a bunch of multiple offers. It seems like it's really competitive. It seems like I'd have to be really aggressive and write an aggressive offer. And I just don't want to, I'm going to hold off.
I completely understand that. And you know what? We absolutely love buyers that aren't in a rush to make a hasty decision, and they might make a decision that they'd regret later. So we absolutely love that, and that we can take the time and do it right and find the perfect home for you. So if we could, I'd like to explain kind of how we're committed to you to delivering the promise. And our goal is to spend your time just as wisely as you spend your money. So in order to understand your motivation and match it to this goal, we want to get as much information as possible to be as efficient with your time searching for your new home. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I love it. Danielle, how would you handle that?
So our goal is, in order for me to handle the objection, I must know your motivation as a buyer, right? I can sell you all day on how we could help you, but if I truly don't know why you want to buy, so what we do in our ISA department is, Vija, remind me again, when you were interested in buying a home, when we talked a couple weeks ago, remind me again what was important to you about getting into a new home.
I just, I want space. I want a bigger lot, and I just want a home office setup and more space, nicer home.
Yeah, I understand. And what will that give you, having more space and a bigger lot and a nicer home?
you know, I won't punch my kids in the throat every day when I'm working from home. That's what it'll give me.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say, it might give you some space for you and your family members in order for you guys to accomplish some daily tasks around the house. Well, Vijay, let me ask you, if we could actually show you a way in the Houston market, there's over 9,000 homes that are active, and our team has roughly about 300 to 500 active homes and about 200 that are upcoming on the market. So if we could show you a way that we could get you and your family into more space, you aren't punching your kids in the face or whatever the motivation is. And you can ultimately not be worried about fighting over inventory. Would you be open to having a conversation with one of our team members?
Sure, you bet. And by the way, I would never punch my kids in the throat. I always get email, like there will be an email from that. Someone will take offense to that. And I have 3 amazing kids and I love them very much. Yeah, let's meet. That's great. Okay, good. Those are really good objection handlers. I have a feeling a lot of agents listening, that was really helpful for them, because that's what everyone's hearing right now for buyers, right? Let's move into sellers, right? What, Danielle, let's stay on with you since we ended with you. We'll start with you this time around. What's the biggest objection you're hearing right now from sellers?
You know, it's very similar. It's the market is moving so quick. Your listing agent, a lot on the follow-up call, right? As an ISA, we're checking in if they didn't sign, or even before. There's this fear in, you're going to put my house on the market and I'm looking in my neighborhood and they're not even sitting on the market for a full week and we don't even know where we want to go. We're also finding that there's obviously, Houston is a big oil and gas industry and that's clearly tanked all year. So there's this fear of, I'm uncertain with the election and with oil and gas of my job and job security. So that's really the biggest objection that we're getting right now, is just there's uncertainty around finances and then not having a place to go. And so that's why we want to wait till the end of the year. I think also school happens to come up. I don't know about you guys, but school actually started yesterday here in a lot of different counties. And so of course, figuring out that virtual world and just nuances into, you know, 1 week they're in the school, 1 week they're at home. I think a lot of parents are just trying to get used to a new normal, and that's the objections we're hearing.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's play a game. Those are 3 of the objections that I'm hearing the most as well. Okay, so let's divide it up. Danielle, why don't you take the unsure about their job objection, and this is sellers. We're going to do seller objections. Mark, why don't you take what was the second one? It was unsure about your job. What was the second?
Financial.
Like election.
Yeah. Mark, why don't you do the
inventory?
school one? Oh, that's what it was. Mark, why don't you do the buy side objection where they're worried about where they're going to buy, because I know you guys are as tight as we are in inventory. Anne Marie, why don't you do the virtual school objection? So Danielle, you're going to give me the objection handler on, I am really concerned. I would like to list my house, but I'm really just unsure about my job right now. The election, my job, I just feel like I should hold off until next year.
Via, thank you so much for sharing that. You know, I'm actually hearing that from a lot of people just like you in similar situations. Let me ask you, would you be willing, just because of uncertainty with your job, to leave roughly $20,000 on the table?
What do you mean?
So right now, Via, our market is extremely hot. And what we're seeing is that the average home in your market is actually selling anywhere from 1 to 7 days, or maybe it's, you know, in multiple offer situations. So what we're seeing is that buyers are actually paying more than market value just to secure a house. So let me ask you, Via, you know, how important is it to get more space and to have your family, whatever the motivation is?
It's important, and I agree with you. I can see it happening on my own street in my own neighborhood, and I feel pretty comfortable my house will sell fast because it's kind of the best house in the neighborhood, and it's worth more than all of them, by the way. But my concern is really, you know, then if it sells really fast, you know, I'm unsure about my job and everything, and now I've got to go buy a home being really aggressive with terms, and I just feel like I should wait till next year because of all this uncertainty.
You know, and again, a lot of people are thinking the same thing. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but what's really great about the market right now is not only are you going to financially gain and benefit on the sell side, you're also going to gain right now on the buy side. So again, like I shared with you, our team has so much inventory. Again, Houston has over 9,000 homes on the market active, and you only need to find one. We also have a pool of homes that are not even active yet that we could sit down with you to make you feel secure of what home you are moving to. Let me go back to the buy side and financially benefiting. Right now, interest rates are at an all-time low. So it's actually going to end up saving you some money when you can qualify for a really great interest rate. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And let's slide over to Mark. That's a good time to slide over to Mark, because Mark, let's really focus on, you know, maybe we've gotten through the uncertainty, but I have to buy, and I'm very fearful because that's a big objection right now, right? Oh, I know I can sell, but I'm really worried about buying. So let's launch into that.
Yeah. So what I'll try to do is tie in a story of something that's actually happened recently. So just yesterday, Miss Via, Mrs. Seller, I was speaking with another person, exact same scenario as you. You know, they have a house to sell, but it's really about finding the right home. That right home is what really motivates them. They actually called us initially about a home that they saw on the market. We had an appointment to get together with them the next day. Unfortunately, that home had already gone under contract. It was no longer available. That's how quickly homes are moving right now. We actually reached out to the listing agent for that particular home, and they let us know that they were not accepting any offers for people who had a contingency in place, who had to sell a home. So you actually would be putting yourself in a better situation if maybe we took some time to sit down with you. It's completely free. It's zero obligation. But what we can at least do is maybe give you some tips on what to do, what not to do, get your home ready for the market so that when you do find your dream home, that perfect home does present itself, you can make a much more competitive offer. I can tell you right now, if you're not on the market right now and you find that dream home, you go to submit an offer, but you have to sell your home first, another person's going to look a little bit more appealing to you if they don't have to sell a home or if their home is already under contract. Again, I mean, it's completely free. It's zero obligation. We can at least sit down with you, give you all the information that you would need in one place to make an informed decision for you and your family. And that way you guys can figure out what the best move is going forward.
That's great. And before we get to Anne-Marie, I just want to point out what you guys are doing. It's what I train my team leaders every day. You're selling the benefit of the appointment. And I think the best script, if anyone leaves this Wednesday webinar with anything, just remember the best script is, and that's why we should meet. I mean, you always want to remember what your call objective is, and it is 100% always to set the appointment. Sometimes we have to do some sales objection handlings to get there, but ideally, you know, everything ends with some version of, yeah, you're totally right, blah, 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 and that's why we should meet. You know, and I just want to remind everybody that you always want to, you know, every conversation you go into, every real estate conversation, ask yourself, what's the outcome I want from this conversation? And most of the time it should be to get an appointment, right? All right. Anne-Marie Anderson, I'm a seller, and I've got 3 kids. By the way, I have 3 kids at virtual school at home. So I'm very much relating to this particular objection, and I do want to sell my house, and I'm actually not necessarily fearful about buying one. You know, I'm not necessarily fearful about my job or anything, but I cannot imagine putting my house on the market right now, as messy and crazy as it is, with 2 teenagers and a 5th grader at home, which, by the way, I have.
Well, Via, I completely understand, and I just got to ask, like, when you think about it, what is your biggest concern?
My house is a mess. I can't imagine that. I mean, I can't really clear the kids out in the middle of the school day for a showing. I mean, they have live, you know, Zoom and Teams classes that are happening, and I just don't know how I would handle that logistically. That
makes sense. And what I'd like to offer is just the fact that there are many people that aren't in that spot, that aren't hesitant, and they're buying and they want to look for a house that's just like yours. So if yours isn't available, it's not an option. And what I want to assure you is that we at least want to provide all the information. So it comes down to numbers, right? Like, you need to know that you're going to make X on your home. So with low inventory, we want to at least show you what that looks like if you were to sell. So if you never list, we'll never know because no one will know about it. But if we have that conversation, we just need to sit down and really go through it so you can make a good decision, because I completely understand that there's so much stress anyway. But think about this, like what if all the numbers make sense, we can do it in a way where you control those showings. So you control that showings are only going to be, what we've had success doing is actually listing late on a Thursday and blocking showings on Friday and doing first showings for an open house on Saturday. So honestly, what our luck has been is by doing so, you don't have anybody disrupting your classroom. And that Saturday, they're not in school, they're not in your school. You have your house open for that. We take safety first, and it's very COVID friendly and focused on safety. Okay. By Monday, Via, we're actually probably reviewing multiple offers.
Yeah, that's really similar to what we used to say on Via Group is, we essentially have a listing launch program. We list all of our homes on a Thursday, and we have offer review on Tuesdays. We truly believe that you need to expose a house on the market the entire weekend. And so what I would probably add to that is a full virtual tour, full Matterport tour that can give people ample idea of the home. They can drive by the home, and then you clean up, you get the house ready Friday afternoon, and just leave it wide open for the weekend. Danielle and Mark, do you guys want to add anything to that? That's got to be a really common objection right now.
I think she handled it beautifully, really.
Sure.
I mean, you can control the showings and like she said, if you don't meet with us, we don't know. Yeah. And yet if you don't know, how can you make the best decision for you and your family? I would hate for you to miss out on a huge financial opportunity right now at this market. Let's go ahead and do the right thing and meet just to give you the information.
Yeah. Mark, anything you'd add to that, or? You're muted.
Okay.
That was awesome.
That was so good.
That happens a lot, even with people who aren't, just starting school or fearful of COVID for us. Just people who don't want to let just anybody in their home. And so what we do is we kind of leverage our ISA team. And we say, that's not an uncommon objection. That's a thing that a lot of people are fearful of. We actually have a team of people here fielding phone calls. That's part of my job. I help lead a team of 11 people where they're going to answer all of the people calling into our office about your home. And what we can do is actually make sure that they're qualified. So we're not going to send anybody just out there. We don't want to waste your time. We're going to make sure that they have a pre-qualification letter in hand before we even give you a call or see if we can show your home. So that's one way to limit it. The virtual option was great. And of course, everything Anne-Marie said is great as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love, Anne-Marie, I love that you said, you can decide, you put the seller in the driver's seat a lot and make them feel empowered. That was great. Did I miss any major objections? Are those the big three? Are there any more that we should talk about before we move on?
Did we hit on the election a lot? I mean, we're getting the election a lot.
Well, you're in DC. That makes sense. Let's go through it. What are they specifically concerned about that's going to happen? That prices will plummet or skyrocket?
Yes.
Or
plummets is what we're getting. So that's why we're getting a lot of people who might be interested in selling and then just renting short term until after the election. If people are kind of on the edge of selling, then we offer that as an option to them, just so we can get that face to face with them. And then what we'll do to sort of counteract, I guess, the election is we'll pitch interest rates hard, like Danielle had said before. They're at an all-time low. Or we'll say, there's been, 3 huge, I guess, market crashes. Only one time have we seen prices in real estate drop, and that was when lenders were overextending. That's not happening right now. And I'm pretty confident. And a lot of times, actually, what you'll see is like when the market does crash, people actually take their money invested into real estate. Especially here in the DC metro market. This is, I guess, it's more particular here, but where we see a pretty steady increase in home values. What we can do is kind of sit down with you, go over what the different options are, and just kind of go from there. So we pitch like the interest rates and the steady market here.
So do people have pretty well thought out reasons why they think it'll plummet? Like, do they kind of outline to you why they think that, or is it more of a gut?
I would say it's more of a gut.
Yeah.
Not very well thought out. Yeah. Even when we try to uncover the objection further, they don't really have much reasoning behind it.
You know why I asked that question is I think that we're in a really politically charged environment right now. And I think that there could be potentially a temptation to get into a little bit of a debate with somebody. And I think that you handled that so well because you didn't do that. You know, you kind of just went to the historical data and that's why we should meet, basically. I mean, if I was going to summarize what you should say is, you're really doing a really great job of just, all of you guys are selling the benefit of the appointment. Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to talk about when we meet. I think that's really probably the biggest takeaway people can get is always think about what your call objection is. And it's almost always to get an appointment. Unless you are Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie, we're going to go there. I'm so excited to talk to you about this. So I had a buyer agent panel a couple weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. And in that panel, the buyer agent on your team, Anne-Marie, talked about, I have this great ISA, and this ISA has him coming in the door to the appointment with the buyer reps already signed. And I went like, what? So I would love you to kind of walk us through what's happening and what you're doing and what you're saying. And that's pretty amazing.
Well, first of all, there's no magic pill. And Kate
really
texted me right after that. She's like, ah! And I said, clearly, let's clarify that we're talking about a commitment. And a lot of that, as we talked about when just all of us met, was it's kind of natural for people to already feel that they know, like, and trust us a bit because of our sources of business are relationship-based primarily. So they've been referred by a trusted family member, a friend, or they've read their reviews. We've got 1,700 plus reviews now. So they've come from a place where they've maybe done their research and they've kind of raised their hand a little bit to have that dialogue. And then honestly, I typically like to bring it to being conversational and making them comfortable, and not, as long as they don't feel that it's salesy and scripty, you'll get them to tell you all kinds of things, sometimes more than others, which is a caveat to this COVID times. I think we're having a lot longer conversations because of the situation. And, it not only gives them a reason to have more questions, but they also have time to research, and they've probably looked that up. So to the point I go to right away, it's simply talking about how we work, and essentially that's our value prop. But I specifically go to, like I talked about, is, can I talk to you about how we're committed to you to delivering the promise? And as we talked about, I told you our goal is to spend your time as wisely as you spend your money. But then I have them kind of self-identify if they're A buyer, B buyer, or C buyer. And this can happen in a consult, but I've kind of brought it back to ISA thinking, would I get in my car to meet this person? Like, are they ready, willing, and able? Again, 3 things. They got the motivation, the ability, and then the only thing in our control is their willingness to work with us. So we have to have that quick relationship building ability to make them comfortable to tell us their real story, their real motivation, instead of what we typically get is people just, hey, I want to go see this house. I want you to open the door, and they'll manipulate you all the way around to get you to just, yes, we'll show you this house. But to kind of have them self-identify without turning them off in sales speak. So then I actually go through, if you were to visit our office, which now it's literally, everything's online, but we have activity boards. And for you, the buyer, that is a good thing. You want a buyer specialist who's active and really knows the market. And so what you'd notice is that these boards serve a couple of purposes, and one's to enable us to match properties with your specific needs. And the second, and the most important, is to classify all of our buyers by motivation or your readiness to buy. So since all buyers don't have the same needs, we categorize our buyers by motivation, and this is kind of the buckets that we are in. So I'd like you, if you have, an extra 2 minutes, just if you can think about this, like which one really kind of matches where you're at. So the A buyer is our highest priority buyer. They're people who have to buy a home. The B buyer, second highest priority. So I just go through and I really specify a description for them to raise their hand that, ooh, because if they say I'm an A buyer and they demand our highest and first foremost attention, well, they better be pre-qualified. They better have cash in their pocket, ready to write a check. And I don't ever use that in a threatening manner, but it's them self-identifying with what I read to them as a description of their behaviors and their motivation. And then, okay, well, that's fantastic, Via. By reading all these, this is what you've told me you are. You're an A buyer, which is our highest priority. You have to buy a home, or you're going to possibly even be homeless. So what you get in return is that commitment to you and our loyalty to you. Like all of our primary time, our 20%, if you will, is spent on our A buyers. So that being said, let's set up that time to meet. I know you want to see 123 Main Street, and we can do that. If you're going to meet there, and this is the caveat for that online, just call in, open the door for me. We'll do that. And if we're not writing an offer for you, we're going to sit and have you explain to us what it was about this house that we're not writing an offer on. What didn't you like? Because then we need to really go to work for you. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's our commitment to you, and all we ask is that same loyalty in return. So sometimes I'll send them the form because we have it. And more often or not, it's just a verbal, okay, here's what, when you meet, our agent is going to go over these, and maybe after looking at the house and if you see others and you've looked online, maybe you'll re-identify that you're more of a B buyer, and that's okay. Obviously, all of you are important. All buyers are important. And at any time, you can quickly become an A buyer and become our top priority. We'll always do our best to accommodate you. So please let us know if your motivation changes. But if that makes sense to you and you've identified as an A buyer, that means you're ready to go. We have 2 different times, tomorrow at 4 or Saturday at 10.
Anne-Marie, that is probably one of the best pre-qualifications of a buyer I have ever heard in my career. I mean, you did there is so much to unpack there. You did so many awesome things because I'm hearing all of that. And to me, the closes, if they're identifying themselves as an A buyer, it's, hey, things are scarce. We stop the presses to work for you. I'm going to send you the form right now so we can just get rolling right away. And by the time you meet with Kate, you'll be ready to go. I think you are brilliant. I think that was really, really, really well done.
Well, it's old school from the buyer's intakes. I mean, the ABC buyer is nothing new. I just bring it back a little bit to the ISA level of just the goal being the appointment, but it's really educating them and having them self-identify and commit. And it's using those words. I'm huge on words and commitment and loyalty. And is there any reason that you can't commit to this time on Saturday? Just the language of getting them bought in. Then they feel
you're helping them walk down the garden path, right? You're having them self-identify. It's coming from them. You're helping them label their own motivation and timing. You're closing on expectations beautifully. You're more than selling the benefit of the appointment. I mean, you're selling your services, your value. Really, really well done. I mean, really well done. Mark and Danielle talk to me. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Do you guys have anything to add to that? I know you guys are brilliant too. What are you guys doing in your buyer pre-qual that you might want to add to that?
Honestly, I was jotting down notes as she was talking.
So good. We'll
Yeah.
send out a lot of scripts. This is going to take a while for all of you on our mailing list. I start getting bugged like an hour after these. This is going to take a while to transcribe, but we'll kind of outline that that method and those scripts because it's superb. So don't worry about notes, Mark. We got you.
Yeah, I
Got you, boo. Yeah. Yeah. So do you anything to add? Like, do you do anything similar, anything different, any supplemental stuff to that? Either of you guys?
We do something very similar. My biggest takeaway from Anne-Marie is I love how she allows them to self-identify.
Yeah. Right.
We are identifying
So
after,
good.
and yet to put that on them, for them to really formulate out loud, like, okay, I am an A buyer, and so what that means is this is what I'm asking from the Loken group, and this is what the Loken group's going to give me. That is awesome. So yeah, I'm going to need that script too. We do something very similar with pre-qual. We're huge on motivation. We actually don't go through pre-qual unless we get motivation. And then the last part of the pre-qualification script we do next steps. We say, hey, Via, now I'm going to explain to you what to expect. You know, our next step is to get you a consultation with our expert and you know, of course, pick day, time. And we say the words, so we're going to carve out this time for you. And what that means is we're going to reserve it so no one else can take up this time. So our commitment is to you. Is there anything that would hold you back from making that appointment on Saturday at 4? So we're big on words because we want to make sure, because if they're motivated, oh yeah, I'm in. When they hear words like commitment, we're reserving, we're carving out time, is there anything that would come up? And if they're on the fence, if they're not very motivated, it's gonna freak them out. And we have heard hesitancy in calling. You hear it go, oh, well, I need to talk to my spouse first, right?
Yeah. You can always tell. You can always tell when you push too far.
That there will be paperwork, right? When we meet, we're gonna revisit on your motivation and on price. We're also going to make sure we're a good fit. This is a relationship and trust-based business. We want to make sure that we both mutually see ourselves moving forward in this process. Then once we agree we're going to work together, we're going to talk about activating next steps, which means signing paperwork. And so we do bring that up. And I believe that helps our conversions with the agents actually signing the agreement at the consultation, because also, when you bring up paperwork, that also is a tester about if you accurately describe the ABC, because some people go, what do you mean paperwork, right? Like, don't freak me out. So anyway, very, very nice. Well done, Anne-Marie. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mark, anything you want to add on buyers? I do want to move to sellers because it seems to me, by the way, Anne-Marie, and Marjorie Kasich brought it up on our chat, but seems to me like you could do similar for sellers. You know, just short of getting them to sign the listing agreement, but at least have them ready to, you know, probably more ready to go than a lot of us do. I don't know, maybe you guys already do it for listings, but before we move to listings, Mark, anything to add on buyers?
So yeah, our qualification is very similar to Danielle's. We don't talk as much about signing and activating to the next step. For us, we've always tried to, I guess, eliminate any fear that they might have in meetings. So we emphasize free and zero obligation. But like, I guess the key takeaway that I got from Anne-Marie was the same thing as Danielle, is that self-identifying as that A-level buyer. And then once they do that, it sort of makes them feel like in this, like the VIP status, I guess, where they're going to receive that like extra level of service. And then we will be the ones to provide it to them. So for them to self-identify that, I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about sellers. So let's kind of move into this whole pre-qual of sellers, right? Especially now, are you guys just like crossing your fingers and just going for the appointment, or are you kind of pushing to that next level like we're talking about right now to kind of get them pre-committed, so to speak?
Our big thing right now is to get the first appointment.
Yeah.
And some of that's from COVID, because they don't want to have 100 million people coming through their home. And we hope that means agents as well. So traditionally we would want to be first or last, and we kind of pivoted ourselves to really want that first position. If we're doing our job and we are communicating our message and our value prop well enough, we will get that listing. If they're willing to meet, and That's another case where we can get the buyer agency signed. We just had it happen in a listing appointment because we talk about a loyalty discount with a multi-home transaction with our team. And if that makes sense to you, I understand you're nervous about finding another home, but you don't want to be homeless, right, Via? So you're going to find another home. And if you use our team, we're specialists. So we have listing agents and we have buyer specialists. So the advantage of working with us is we're experts at that simultaneous same day closing back to back. So you're not living on a moving truck, teaching your kids in a moving truck. We're experts at that. So we'll coordinate that for you and with you. And in doing so, you get a discount. We value that. We appreciate you. We want to have that relationship with you for a lifetime. So then we actually get them to agree to do the buyer's agency agreement with the listing agreement.
You just traumatized me, the thought of educating kids, homeschooling them on a moving truck. I have to get that image out of my head. That's
better than cutting them. It's better than cutting them.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. All right, this is fantastic. Let's go through some numbers a little bit. Like on an average day, I'd love to know, and tell us what you track. You may not track all these, but I'd love to get a brief idea of, how many dials, how many contacts, how many appointments you're setting, to just get a rough idea of what approximate conversion rate would look like. Danielle, do you want to start?
Sure, yeah. So we call it the 2-10-40. So individual ISAs set 2 appointments a day. That would be 10 a week. That would be 40 a month. Conversion rates on set to capped or set to held is roughly about 90%, both on buy and sell. So really,
that's really high. 90% set to held. Do you have a secret there?
I would say it has a lot to do with our at your service. We created an internal process to have an in-office expert available to take that immediate urgent call appointment virtually, right? Either phone or Zoom. So I feel like we've done that really well. And then our kept to signed roughly floats, depending on listing or buy, in the 60 to 70 range on average. I think right now we're at roughly 64%. So those are kind of some numbers. And I would say minimum contacts in order for our ISAs to keep their inbound shifts, that we require 35 contacts a day.
Okay. And how many hours a day is that on the phone?
We consider like 3 power hours, in which is outbound prospecting. And then you can also consider maybe an hour or two of pipeline follow-up kind of calls. Yep. That you've met with, things like that. So anywhere from 3 to 5 hours on the phone a day.
That's really interesting because, I lead team leaders and we do a 2-10-40 too. And what we found about appointments set to held is that the smaller the delta between setting the appointment and the appointment itself, the higher the show up rate. So, the extreme version would be let's meet now. Right? You're going to have a higher show up rate than let's meet in a week. You can't always do it, but 90%'s really, really high. Mark, what about you guys?
Yeah, so we're averaging since April about 130 appointments booked per week. For dials, our guys, we dial 90 minutes hard and take a 15-minute break. 90 minutes hard, take a 15-minute break. At the beginning of each day, I assign them a filter that everyone's expected to hit, so there's no really guessing on where they're supposed to be. They could be in follow-up, and then we have filters broken down by sellers, buyers, lead source, registration date, so they know exactly who they're calling. We're averaging about a 70% show rate, so having about 85 to 90 appointments happen per week right now. Let's see, we're more listing heavy. We were. Things have kind of taken a turn recently, a little bit more buyer heavy now, so about 80 buyer appointments booked per week. And yeah, we're averaging, it's about a 70% show rate.
What's the contact-ish? I mean, how many contacts a day-ish do they hit?
So they're expected to touch, it's about 75 leads per day. Now, when we dial, we don't just call one time. We do what's called double tapping. So like, I don't know about you guys, but like if I get a phone call and I don't know that phone number, I don't pick it up. So what we'll do is we'll call, and we're hand dialing everybody. We're not using any dialers. We'll call. If they don't pick up, we hang up, and then we call right again immediately after. We've had a much higher success rate doing that. If they don't answer after the second phone call, then we're sending that text in the email. So contact rate, we're not really measuring as much, but it's about 75 lead touches per day.
Okay, that's interesting. Do you, what's on your caller ID? Does it say Reynolds team?
So we've tested it. It actually varies based on the carrier of who we're calling. So sometimes if it's a T-Mobile person, it'll say scam likely. I think if it's AT&T, it says, it'll say Reynolds team. Verizon is just the phone number that we're calling from. Yeah.
What makes you choose hand dialing versus an auto dialer?
We had a higher success rate of getting people to answer. So we used Mojo before, and we used that triple dialer, and we were going through and dialing 3 people at a time, and we were not reaching people, or there would be a delay in the time that people did pick up, and then we were able to hear them. And so once we just started doing the hand dialing, we were booking more appointments. I think last year around the same time, we were averaging between 60 to 70 appointments booked per week. And now we're, 130. We have added 4 ISAs, and obviously that contributes to it, but we've been booking significantly more appointments through the hand dialing. Yeah,
really, really impressive appointment counts. Anne-Marie, what about you?
Well, Tony went and visited the Loken group when he first started the ISA team. So ironically, we're on that 21040 as well. The difference is just volume for us. We're much leaner and meaner, maybe just leaner.
Not meaner. You're not meaner.
Our set to met on the listing side is at 98.1. And then met to signed is 85.29 right now. Buy side set to met 96.8. And buyer held to signed is 78.34 right now.
Wow.
So pretty high.
Really high. Really high.
It's going to be quality over quantity. It's our sources. All those things play into factor. We're too lean to run appointments, to run around town and meet people. That's just the way it is. So, we want to scale at the same percentage level, but we know that will be some magic as well. But it's really because we're small, and it's going to be super vetted from beginning to get them met. So.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. Really, really impressive. One last question before we wrap. And I think this is an important question, because there's a lot of agents that are watching and listening who might privately have some cold call reluctance, or at least call reluctance, right? Do you guys have any advice for getting over that?
I know for me, the hardest part when I had first started was gaining confidence on the phone, the fear of rejection. It was maybe not saying, like when I go into something, I like to at least know a little bit, preferably a lot, about what I'm talking about. So when I first started, I didn't really have much knowledge of real estate whatsoever. And instead of being out in the bullpen with all of our agents and everybody walking around, I would come in more on the weekends, and I would call from home. Until I got the script down pat and role play. Did a lot of role play with my wife and then the other ISAs at the time. So me just spending more time and then coming into the office on weekends helped a lot.
That's good. What about you guys?
I'll go with just, it's mindset, right? When you look at that phone, or you look at that phone list, or you are just, where do I start? Or they're going to reject me. It's like, if your mindset, you have to think of them as somebody that you can help, and it's a family that needs your help. And if that isn't enough motivation, then it really is, it's your JOB and it's your paycheck. And if that is your personality and that's what gets you to do your job, then look at how you can, be the best showing up, because they deserve it. And if they don't talk to you and have a great conversation, they're going to talk to an agent that won't care as much. And that's the worst thing that we could do.
Yeah. Danielle, do you have any last thoughts on this?
I would just say it's a numbers game, right? So you got to start somewhere. We all fail miserably at the very beginning. So go into it with the right mindset of you're helping people and you're going to fail through it. And I can promise you the 100th call is going to be better than the first. The 1,000th call is going to be better than the 100th, and it just gets better. Also, reach out to colleagues, ask others to shadow you, go shadow others. I'm on this panel and I'm learning from Anne Marie and I'm learning from Mark. So you have to put yourself out there in order to succeed in this business.
Yeah. So good, you guys. There's two things I think that I'd want to end with. One of them is that I've led salespeople for many, many years, and I would say that there's two causes of cold call reluctance. You don't know who to call, and you don't know what to say. Most of us know who to call, so it really boils down to a variation of what everyone here said. Practice what to say. Know what to say. I love what Mark does with his ISA team, where he is telling them who to call. He is literally eradicating those two obstacles in the path of cold call reluctance. The other thing, I read an article a month ago, it really resonated with me. And it said, your willingness to interrupt people, because that's what it is, that's what calling people is, your willingness to interrupt people is going to determine your success. So if you want to talk yourself out of it, interrupting people unannounced, because that's really what a phone call is, right? You have to get comfortable with interrupting them, make it worth their while, get good, sell the benefit of the appointment, and I think really believe that what you're talking to them about is valuable, and that's how I think you get past it, those two things. Anne-Marie Anderson, Tony Baroni team, Mark Parbin, Reynolds Group, Danielle Weiss, Loken Group. You guys are amazing. I'm blown away today. There's a lot that we're going to have to transcribe and type out from this. A lot of scripts. All of you loyal Wednesday webinars who are on our mailing list, don't bug me. Give me some time on this one. It's going to be a while. We are not going to be on next week because of Mega Camp. I'm super excited about Mega Camp. I'm actually going to be on, if you want to look for me, it's lead generation for luxury. I'm going to be on that. I'm going to be hosting the luxury happy hour for Mega Camp. And if you're not with Keller Williams, we invite you as our guest to that. Just feel free to reach out to me or comment in comments, and someone will talk to you about that. Mega Camp is probably one of the best training events in our industry, period, hands down. And because it's going to be virtual this year, everyone's going to have access to it. Usually we get to go to Austin, Texas for that. So thank you very, very much to our ISA panelists. I will see you in 2 weeks where we got Tiffany Fikes, and we're going to drill into farming. Tiffany's created an amazing business on farming. We're going to go from cradle to grave, from when she had no money and could only afford 5 postcards, all the way till now when she's in Gary Keller's top agent group, and she's a top agent in the entire Keller Williams company. So thank you everybody for joining us. Have a great Wednesday.